Morning, everybody. My name is Adam Parrish, and this morning I'm going to be doing a presentation on how to build a computer. I'm going to go over a couple of the kind of pros and cons, why you would even want to do this, and some reasons you might not want to, just because it might be a little aggravating. So, why build your own computer? One of the biggest things is you get the best performance for the price. If you go and buy just a computer from the store, don't build your own, you could end up getting overcharged for things that if you bought separately and put it together yourself, you could pay half as much or even less sometimes. Another one is quality components. When you buy these cheap computers from the store, a lot of times they just put in cheap little components to keep the prices down, but then it ends up causing you a lot of trouble in the future because the cheap parts keep breaking down, not working properly, require a lot of maintenance, or you having to take it to some IT store or wherever and get it fixed. Another is significantly better cooling, and if you don't already know, cooling is extremely important to a computer. A lot of those components get very, very hot and they will not work well or even completely break if they get very hot. A lot of pre-built computers have very little ventilation, and if you build your own and put what you need in there, it greatly increase the performance of it and increase the life of it. Flexible design formats, that's more of an aesthetic thing for the most part. If you're just going to stick it under a desk and use it just to shop and surf Facebook and stuff, it's not that big of a deal. But if you just want something that looks a little nicer and prettier, then you can go with that instead of just having to buy what the store has in stock. Upgradability. If you're going to use it for any particular purpose, this could be a huge plus for you. Like I said earlier, if you're just going to use it to surf Facebook and maybe do some shopping and just surfing the web, whatever, do schoolwork, then this option, building your own computer, probably isn't the best. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You can buy something from the store, it'll work just fine. But if you're getting a computer for a particular purpose, a workload, your job requires you to have a powerful computer to do whatever your job is, or whatever your hobby is, or something like video editing or anything content creation. Being able to upgrade your computer could be very important in the future. With the pre-built ones from the store, a lot of times they don't even offer any kind of upgradability. There are no slots to add anything in. Next is balance. When you build your own, you can pick pretty much powerful parts. If you buy a pre-built one, you might have some parts that are just way too weak, almost too slow, and it can slow down the entire computer when it doesn't really need to be that way if you were to build your own. This next one, no bloatware. I'll explain what bloatware is. All when you buy a new phone or a computer or something, it has all this mess downloaded on it. All kind of apps and stuff that throw ads up on your screen all the time, notifications, this and that, dinging and everything else. If you build your own, you choose what goes on it. Nothing goes on there without you wanting it on there. So you don't have to put up with that kind of aggravation and deleting stuff and silence and everything. Choice of an operating system, that's not that big of a deal, but if you preferred something over Windows, or if you have an Apple device, they have the iOS, I believe. If you preferred one of those or the other, you can put whatever you want on there or something. And again, more options to do what you want to with it. You also have better knowledge of the components of your computer and better warranties. A lot of times when you go to the store and buy the computer, it may have a very short little warranty on it. It may only be 6 months, a year, 2 years, and a lot of times you have to pay for it, and especially if you want an extended warranty, you pay a lot of money. If you buy your own individual components put together yourself, a lot of the individual parts have extended warranties that come with them. They may have 5 and 10-year warranties on the individual parts that just come standard, no extra. So that's one of the plus. Better monitors and accessories, you don't just get what comes with it. If you need something a little more powerful for a certain purpose, you can get that, and you don't have to pay for it when you buy the stock computer and then buy an extra and pay extra money. You buy what you need to begin with. And like I said, you can still use tech support. Some places, that's a plus for a lot of people. When they go and buy the computer, they can use that store or whatever's tech support. Well, it's the same way when you build your own. Except you won't have a particular store. You have tech support for every company you have bought components from. So you may have 15 different tech supports. You can call, if one of them can't solve your problem, call another one. So you've got more options. And then two, if it's something you could really get into, it's pretty fun, and I enjoy it. So the basic components you'll need, and I'll go over each of these individually, but the main things you'll need is a processor or a CPU, motherboard, RAM, graphics card, memory, power supply, fans or some type of cooling, a case for it all to go in, and then accessories, which includes things like your screen, keyboard, mouse, other stuff. So there's a picture of a processor. It's basically the brain of the computer. Without this, the computer it will not function. It does nothing. It's pointless. It can't even turn on without the CPU. It's the brain of the computer. It does all of the thinking and processing. Whenever you tell your computer to do something, it goes through the processor for it to do its job. Motherboard. If the CPU is the brain, then the motherboard, I like to think of it as like the nervous system. Everything on the computer in some way, shape, or form will connect to this motherboard, and it allows everything to communicate and work together smoothly. They all talk and communicate in between and manage workloads and things through the motherboard, through little wires and pathways in there. RAM, or random access memory. It is also necessary for a computer to function. Usually a computer, if you don't have any in your computer at all, it won't even function. I like to try to describe it as short-term memory. It allows for fast function. If you were, say you could get a computer to work without RAM, what it would do is it would just be extremely, extremely, extremely slow. I like to use the analogy of your RAM is like a desk. So let's say you're working on drawing a picture. Without your RAM, you don't have your desk that has all your pencils and markers and crayons and paper and whatever else you're going to use, scissors and glue and everything. So when you decide you want to draw your picture, if you didn't have your desk or your RAM, you have to say, okay, I need a piece of paper. Let me run to this other room and grab a piece of paper. Bring it back. Now I need my green crayon. I'll over here and grab it. And so on and so on for every individual little thing you need. Your RAM acts like your desk. It puts everything right here, easy for you to just grab and use and do things quickly. You being the CPU, the processor, it keeps everything, like I said, it's almost like short-term memory. It brings the stuff in that it needs and can access and use quickly. Graphics card. Sometimes these are optional. You can sometimes get a CPU with some built-in graphics, but if you wanted something, if you wanted to use it for something like playing video games or something, you would want something like this, and there are other certain little workloads that you would need it for. But it allows for video output. Without either a graphics card or built-in graphics, nothing would show up on our screen here. It produces video. Memory, your hard drives. I've got two different kinds up here. These are the two more common types that are out there these days. They're both your long-term storage. Like when you store music or files or whatever on your computer, it goes to your hard drives. So the one should be on your left. It looks like a bigger brick, like a grayish color. Mm-hmm. It's the mechanical hard drive. These are a little bit older technology. They store stuff on a disk and it spins in there and reads off of it, almost like a CD drive. And then on your right, you have a solid state drive. They're a little more modern. It does the exact same thing, it's just faster. The computer can access the stuff on it faster and also save things to it much faster. Then your power supply. Arguably one of the most crucial parts of the entire computer. Without it, nothing would run. When you're choosing your own and building your own PC, you do have to be careful too to know what kind of load you're going to be putting onto it. They come in different powers. Like this right here says like CX500M. It's a 500 watt power supply. It will produce up to 500 watts of electricity for your computer. So if you look at your components and they're going to use more than 500 watts of electricity, then you need a bigger one. And let's see, it powers some components of the computer directly. All those wires you see kind of with a twisty tie around them hanging off the back of it, sometimes they plug directly into individual little components, but then sometimes they just plug into the motherboard, and things that get plugged in will just draw power straight from the motherboard instead of a wire running directly into the top of them or whatever. Alright, as far as cooling, like I mentioned earlier, all computer components run hot and they need to be cool to run. They will quit working if they get too hot, and just overheating will cause pretty significantly decreased performance. Something else, you also have a CPU fan. It's a specific fan, like specialty for the CPU. It gets so hot that it has its own special fan that goes right on top of it to try to keep it cool. It is absolutely crucial. Most motherboards have a specific little slot that you plug this into, and the computer will not even turn on unless something is plugged into that particular spot. That's how important it is, because the CPU will just overheat and could damage it or not work anyway without it. Another option, which is mostly for enthusiast or super high-end computers, so this one's, I just put it up there because it's an option, it's out there, it's liquid cooling. It is basically unrivaled cooling performance. You can't really get much better without doing something completely extreme or ridiculous. And it's mostly for, like I said, very, very high-end work computers with really high workloads, and for video games, because that can cause some computers to run really hot. And it's not for beginners. It's quite difficult to get into. Next thing is your computer case. Obviously holds everything together. You have to be careful when choosing a computer case. Usually you get all your components you want, and then pick a case that fits it. Certain cases hold different types or sizes of motherboards, and you have to be careful. They all have sizes clearly listed, like in descriptions of them, so it's not that bad, but you do have to kind of look and make sure that everything is the right size and it's going to fit together. And it allows for ease of use, like turning it on and off and plugging things into it easier. Without it, there are ways to turn it off without using a power button on your computer, but this just makes it so much easier. Just reach down there and hit the power button. And then, you would need accessories, whatever you want: mouse, keyboard, speakers, screen, printers, headphones, cameras, USB drives for all kinds of purposes. This is a few. There are many, many more. Then, what you do once you have built your computer. Number one is kind of test everything. You want to do that before return policies run out, so you can test everything, make sure it works, and if it doesn't, you can go back, return it, and get a new one, whatever. This I won't get too much into because this will be like a whole other lecture on its own. Go into the BIOS, BIOS. It basically allows you to tap into the motherboard, and you can adjust almost anything having to do with your computer. You can see what is connected to it. If something's not working properly, you can see the fans working, all kind of stuff. But it's good to, if you're wanting to build one, it's good to know about the BIOS and how to use it and use it properly. If you want Windows, a way to actually use your computer, you'll need to download it onto something like a thumb drive beforehand, and then plug it into your new computer. Like you would need another computer or whatever, and download it onto a little thumb drive and plug it in and upload it and install it and everything. It's actually a very simple process. It pretty much does it for you almost. Then install drivers. Every piece of hardware in there requires a driver. A driver is how it almost helps your computer recognize and use the individual components. It's like an instruction manual, basically. If you buy some piece of IKEA furniture, it comes in 1,000 different pieces. Without the furniture, you have no idea how to put it together and use it. The driver's like the instruction manual. It clearly lays out exactly how to put it together and use it and everything. And you need that for almost all the components on a computer. Then install everything you want. After that, it's a functional computer. So you install what you want on it: internet, games, whatever files, anything you need. You go ahead and install them on there, and then after that, just have fun with your new computer.